So my story really begins with What If Productions and our genesis, which is, like Michelle, back in Memphis, Tennessee, at Playhouse on the Square, a professional theater company in Memphis, where I began as an actor and as a director, but learned how to begin as an artist fully. So naturally, if I wanted to start my own theater company, I'm going to move to a remote island in northern Michigan. If you know the hand of Michigan, it's this tiny little dot up here, 2 hours off the coast of northern Michigan. But why we did that is because we wanted to learn how to start a nonprofit and do everything on our own. And we did it for an entire year. It was freezing. I hated Michigan, so we moved back south to Atlanta, Georgia, where I started as an art dealer and art representative internationally for an artist called Ford Smith and Ford Smith Fine Art, where I learned again how to stretch myself as an artist and use inspiration from other artists to create my own company, which eventually would become What If Productions. Our theater has now been 10 years successful here in Charleston, and if you're an artist in Charleston, to live that long is a huge accomplishment. What If started as a question. What if we did this? What if we challenged ourselves? What if we continued to do something different every time we did something? So we wanted to make a big splash in Charleston, so naturally we did Hedwig and the Angry Inch as our first show. So to make a big splash, we had a German transvestite rock star squat and take a pee beside a garbage can as our first promotional photo. So we certainly got everybody's attention, and that worked out quite well. So to keep our momentum going, we moved forward and stripped ourselves back completely and did something quite subtle and horrifying, which we eventually became well known for our darkness. If you've seen any What If, our darkness and our humor, which took us all the way back to a show called Bash, our second show in our season, to kind of illustrate the kind of the intimate one-on-one we can do with our audience. So then we jumped ahead to a show called 5 Lesbians Eating a Quiche, and actually, Jonathan, who did the poster for tonight, actually took this photo. We did 4 versions of the show, and the reason this is important is because we started a collaboration with a theater in Chicago called the New Colony, who writes all of their plays, and we produced the first one outside of their own city. And then we moved on right after that to our Playwrights Festival. We wanted to foster the works of new artists, and working with 5 Lesbians, we jumped ahead and had our first contest where we produced the winning playwright, The Practice Child, in 2013. And that went on to be one of our biggest producing shows of all time. So we realized there was a niche for that. But we wanted to keep challenging ourselves. So we moved back to the American theater and did a show called Saucy Jack and the Space Vixens, which is a wonderful show about a cross-dressing, sexual escapade, murdering guy who travels through space and kills people. Naturally, it was a musical. But you'll see, we used the entire theater. We went back after that, and Del Shores, if anybody's ever heard of the show Sordid Lives, a very popular show, we went back and challenged ourselves and did things about personal issues, domestic dramas. And look at this handsome alcoholic drunk over here on the left, that's me, and the trials and tribulations of a trailer child's housewife. Then we moved on to collaborate with an artist in New York named Stephen Dolgenoff on a musical called Thrill Me, the Leopold and Loeb story. A musical about real-life murderers, Leopold and Loeb, who kill a teenage kid, and there's a musical about it. And we produced it. It became our most popular show to date, and we continue to get requests to bring that show back, and we will be doing that next season, hopefully. So, you know, again, as you're an artist, you're always going to challenge yourself. We produced a lot of our shows at the time at a black box theater that only seated 98 people. So naturally, we want to take a big, giant musical and see if we can put it in a really tiny space, and that's what we did with Cabaret. And, you know, if you're going to put a band on top of a platform and perform under it, that's the kind of show to do. Our Playwrights Festival came back a few years later with one of our most popular shows called The Cannibals, which is a post-apocalyptic show about a bunch of people who are trying to survive after a nuclear fallout. And this is another one of our original plays that we produced and became one of our biggest hits. So there is a market for new playwrights and the works of new artists in this town. Then we challenged ourselves again by bringing back a musical called Evil Dead the Musical. Evil Dead the Musical happened to be an entire nightmare as a producer, but you always have to challenge yourself. If you're going to do a show with zombie contacts and blood and gore and your set falling apart, I highly recommend doing Evil Dead the Musical. But going back with classics again in a tiny little black box that seats 98 people, we put together a production of Amadeus. If you've ever seen the show itself, it is massive. So one of the things as artists that we challenge ourselves to do is to find a way to condense that into a tiny little space and still tell the same intimate story. But that wasn't enough for us. So, as you're continuing to grow into your seasons, about into our 6th season, we started doing other programming like Karaoke Smackdown. We would have people do an American Idol style challenge competition, and we had themes. The winner would get a blow-up doll a sexual blow-up doll that looked like Elaine Stritch dressed in a disco outfit. Of course. And then our audience kept stretching. We were doing fabulous works of art. We're doing plays. We're doing Karaoke Smackdown. Then we started our What If Piano Bar series, which started in 2017 and continues to this day and has become one of our most popular series to date, a second growth of our artistic accomplishments. And then one of our very last shows that we did, going back from Evil Dead the musical and also from the Cannibals, we became known for our horror and gore, and it's become kind of a hallmark of our theater company. And, not everything you're going to do is going to change lives, but we are entertainers. And the first thing that we always remember ourselves as a theater company is we are here to entertain. And that's the kind of thing we do. And the first show I ever did back in Memphis, back in 2003, was a show called Hair the Musical. And I swore if I ever had my own theater company, I would eventually produce that giant show for myself. And this year in 2019, our 10th anniversary, we were able to accomplish that dream with the production at the Queen Street Playhouse. So now we are at season 10. We are a very unique, ambitious, but quirky theater company, and I hope that you will come and check out our season, that we have a revival. We've come full circle in 10 years. Our very first show, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, we'll be producing that in January to celebrate 10 years of surviving as an artist here in Charleston. So thank you very much for having me.